In the mountains of Costa Rica, a helicopter drops a team of scientists led by Dr. Morbius at the entrance of a cave. Morbius suffers from a rare blood disease and needs canes to walk, so he asks his team to set up the trap they've brought. He then advances and holds up his injured hand to entice every bat in the cave to fall into the trap. While the pilot and the squad flee in terror, Morbius remains still. It all began in Greece 25 years ago. Dr. Nicholas presents little Morbius, who goes by Milo, to a boy in the hospital where he stays. The two children instantly clicked, sharing a desire to be normal despite having the same uncommon blood illness. While they're chatting, Milo's machine suddenly malfunctions and he passes out. Morbius takes a spring from his pen to quickly fix the machine and Milo immediately wakes up. Nicholas is very impressed by Morbius' intelligence and decides to send him to an exclusive school in New York. But Morbius only accepts after Nicholas promises to take care of Milo. In a letter to Milo before departing, Morbius assures him that he will discover a treatment for their illness. When Milo tries to retrieve the letter that unintentionally fell out of his hands, he finds that some cruel students from the adjacent school have read it and are making fun of him for it. Fortunately, Nicholas shows up and chases the group away before they can do any real damage. He also has to stop Milo from trying to exact retribution. The group starts beating Milo up for fun. When he turns 19, Morbius succeeds in earning his PhD and goes on to create artificial blood that saves millions of lives. The King of Sweden wants to give him the Nobel Prize, but he turns it down because he discovered the artificial blood by accident while trying to find a cure for his illness. Back to the present, Morbius works at the hospital when he is approached for a private conversation by his colleague, Dr. Martine. She inquires about Morbius' bizarre project, which Milo is funding to combine bat and human DNA as she is testing him. Morbius acts as though he has no idea what she's talking about, but when Martine shows him his tank filled with Colombian bats, he admits the truth. The only mammals on Earth that only eat blood are these bats, so Morbius believes that their unique saliva may be the key to curing his illness. Martine is dubious about the idea and questions the ethics of such an experiment, but Morbius tests his new serum on a lab rat, who sadly dies. At that point, one of Morbius' patients begins to have seizures, so they have to rush to her room and have to put her in a coma to prevent a stroke. Later, when Martine returns to check on the lab, she is surprised to see the rat moving, indicating that the serum is effective. Sometime later, Morbius meets with Milo to tell him about his breakthrough and ask for more money. Since this experiment isn't legal, he needs to do it on international waters, and Milo gladly will pay for everything if it means finding a cure. A few days later, Morbius takes Martine with him on the trip to international waters. Morbius manages to make a new, more advanced serum and Martine injects it into Morbius' spine. She also buckles him up as his body starts shaking. At that moment, a crew member comes to the lab to check on them, and while Martine argues with him, Morbius manages to break free. When Martine and the guard enter the isolation chamber, they are horrified to see Morbius, a horrible creature with a crawling on the ceiling there. The guard tries to shoot him, but Martine begs Morbius to stop, but he moves lightning fast and climbs on him to feed. Morbius' sensitive hearing aches so much when the ship's alarm goes off that he panics and causes damage to the isolation chamber. Martine tries to stop the other members of the security team from arriving, but they shove her aside and knock her unconscious. At that moment, Morbius manages to finish breaking the glass and jumps out of the room to show off his new vampiric powers, which allow him to dodge bullets and move quickly to kill the guards without mercy. A few survivors run away and lock the door. However, Morbius is also incredibly strong now and easily breaks it down. Subsequently, Morbius scuttles across the roof once more, patiently apprehending each guard individually and eliminating them all. When the crew has all perished and Morbius has had enough to eat, his body returns to human form, so he quickly looks in the mirror. It's evident that he has finally recovered. After that, Morbius examines the security footage to make sure Martine is okay. He throws up after realizing what he's done since he's so disturbed, but he then calls for help, takes the serums, and dives into the water. The next morning, 2 FBI agents arrive at the ship to investigate the crime scene, but unfortunately Morbius has deleted all the security recordings and Martine is still unconscious. The case soon appears on the news, which is seen by Nicholas and Milo. Sometime later, Morbius returns to the hospital, and after checking on his patients, he goes to his lab to leave the serums. His body soon starts failing again, so he rushes into the fridge to drink the artificial blood he's created. That way he can feed without having to kill anyone. Next, he starts testing his abilities to demonstrate his skills. He is demonstrating his speed, agility, ability to climb anything, and wide range of jumps. Morbius feels a connection to the bats as they flutter politely about him when he enters the tank with them. Additionally, he finds that he has bat-like echolocation. To test this, he throws a ball around the room and uses his closed eyes to grab it. Unfortunately, he can only use these abilities while he is eating. For 6 hours, the artificial blood keeps him steady, but he is aware that real blood will soon be required because time is running out. He sequesters himself in a solitary chamber to investigate this further. When Milo pays him a visit a few hours later, he is in a very feeble state. Milo delivers him a few bags from the freezer after Morbius writes his own blood request on the glass. Milo is astounded by this remedy as soon as Morbius eats again and becomes robust once more. But when Milo requests an injection as well, Morbius informs him that he has erred and that this remedy is a curse. When Milo doesn't stop insisting, Morbius becomes irate and throws him out. When Martine does eventually wake up, FBI investigators visit her and show her unsettling images of the bodies on the ship. However, Martine pretends she doesn't remember what happened that night. Later in the evening, a nurse is working late and notices the lights behaving strangely. She begins running away in fear, but she's still caught by a vampiric creature that kills her. When the body is found in the morning, Morbius is as surprised as his co-workers and thinks he may have done it. Questioning his own sanity, Morbius runs to the lab and takes a few fake blood bags before leaving. On his way out, he's confronted by the FBI agents, who ask questions about the experiments and decide to arrest him. With only a few quick moves, Morbius defends himself and takes them out. He then climbs the stairs to flee while dodging a police officer's gunfire. When he reaches the hospital top, he is surprised to sense that the air from the air conditioning unit is stronger than usual. However, the agents arrest him before he can investigate more. Morbius, who is permitted to keep his notes while incarcerated in Manhattan, does the arithmetic and finds that his feeding schedule has changed from every 6 hours to every 4 hours and 22 minutes. He is shackled to the table in the interrogation room, and the agents enter with holy water just in case. They blame him for the deaths on the ship and also the nurse, but Morbius is starting to lose control and begs for his bags of fake blood. The agents don't take him seriously and send him back to his cell. Later on, Morbius is visited by Milo, who offers his support and gives him a pack of artificial blood before he leaves. However, Morbius notices Milo has forgotten his cane and discovers the truth. Milo stole the serum and injected himself with it. In fact, he was the one who killed the nurse. Once his way out, Milo stops pretending he's disabled and walks away with perfect reflexes. Furious, Morbius drinks the blood and transforms into his vampiric form to escape the cell through the window. Then, using his echolocation to hear Milo attack the proprietor of a newspaper stand, he leaps all over the city. Calling Milo a monster, Morbius rushes to confront him on the street right away. To get Morbius off his back, Milo strikes him because he believes that this ability is fantastic and that they can now do anything they want. A vicious battle breaks out, and as the vampires advance to strike one another, they crash into the subway station, causing citizens to run in panic. Milo rejoices that they have changed after a few more hits, but Morbius says he will figure out a way to make this right. The police arrive at that precise moment to take them both into custody, but Milo acts quickly, killing everyone in a matter of seconds before doing a brief victory dance. As the train draws nearer, Milo then launches another attack on Morbius. Morbius senses the train's rapid airflow and leaps in front of it to escape by flying through the tunnels. The next day, Martine enters a store in an attempt to flee through the back entrance because she feels as though someone is following her across the city. An agent is trailing her and has now lost her amidst the throng. When Martine gets on the bus, she reads in the papers that Morbius is wanted, but then he appears out of nowhere behind her. They get off the bus to stop at a cafe, and she believes him when he tells that Milo is the real killer because he took the serum. After asking Martine a few questions, Morbius follows the two criminals after overhearing them mention a lab during their conversation. After taking the artificial blood Martine got for him, Morbius finds the thugs inside a lab where they counterfeit money. When he nicely asks them to give him their lab, Athig tries attacking him with a knife, but Morbius breaks his hand and scares them all away as he calls himself Venom. While Morbius uses the pieces of the printing machines to make the devices he needs to work on a cure for vampirism, Milo is getting ready for a night out. After dancing around the apartment while getting dressed, he goes to a nightclub and flirts with a beautiful woman, but a guy says he saw her first and pushes him away. Milo manages to keep his powers under control and leaves. However, he waits outside, and when the guy comes out with his friends, he kills them all. Shortly after, Milo is at Morbius' hospital lab, inquiring for his pal, while Martine goes to get a few things. Martine orders Morbius to go without a fuss, claiming she has no idea where he is. Martine and her pet are not present when the FBI officers break into her home. In the meanwhile, then it becomes clear that Martine, along with her cat, is hiding with Morbius at the new lab. She slashes her finger accidentally while attempting to feed it, and Morbius has to concentrate extra hard to keep his mouth shut at the smell of her blood. Afterward, they share a moment on Theraph and kiss, unaware that Milo watches them from afar. The next morning, the FBI agents find the dead guys outside the bar and check the security cameras to discover Milo is the actual murderer. After seeing the news update, Nicholas visits Milo and requests that he cease killing people. After pointing out that Morbius has always been the favorite, Milo, fed up with the doctor's sympathy, strikes Nicholas, severely wounding him. In the meantime, Morbius creates an antibody that only affects vampire bodies. When the time comes, he makes 2 bottles, one for Martine to use on himself and one for Milo. He quickly heads to Milo's flat after receiving a call from Nicholas at that very moment requesting for assistance. Regretfully, before passing away, Nicholas only succeeds in pleading with Morbius to stop Milo. Simultaneously, Milo kidnaps Martine and uses his power to make her utter Morbius' name. Using his echolocation to pinpoint their location, Morbius soars over the city and discovers Martine bleeding from a Milo wound on a roof. She wishes to be eaten by Morbius, so she can pass away useful, but he kisses her, and a drop of his own blood falls into her mouth. Martine passes away at that very time, and Morbius succumbs to his rage and consumes her. When Milo shows up on the roof as well, Morbius leaps on him and they both tumble over the edge. On their way down, the vampires continue to attack each other and crash through a building a few times before they begin falling again. Milo hits Morbius extra hard and causes him to land on a platform, where he grabs him by the leg and throws him against a glowing sign. When Morbius falls one more time, Milo jumps on him and drags him against a building before they hit the street, only to go through the pavement and land on a tunnel. While Milo laughs like a maniac, Morbi sends a powerful echolocation wave through the tunnel with his voice and then through the water with his hand. When Milo tries to kill him with a metal rod, Morbius sends an army of bats after him in an attempt to save him. When Morbius enters and injects Milo with the antibody while the little animals are holding him down, Milo turns human and apologizes before passing away. In order to securely exit the tunnel, Morbius hides among the bats when the FBI agents and the police arrive at that same moment. Martine, in the meantime, awakens on the roof and declares that she too is a vampire. Sometime later, a mysterious spell drops Spider-Man's enemy Vulture in the local prison. Since he came from another universe, nobody knows who he is here and the police immediately release him. Soon, Vulture manages to remake his villain costume and approaches Morbius to team up.